Welcome back to Old School Eats. I'm Derek Old School Fournier, and today we're going to do reverse-seared tri-tip on Old School Eats. All right, here is our tri-tip. As Malcolm and I went around to try and source today, we ran into some challenges. Because we tried sourcing last night. We did not plan very well. And by we, I mean I didn't plan very well because it's my job. At any rate, we went to Heights Market, local place. Great, they have tremendous stuff. Not sponsored by any of these guys, but we could have gone with a choice Angus, which was about this big, or this beautiful Wagyu tri-tip. Now, let's just be serious. A Wagyu tri-tip is overkill. You don't need to do this, but it looks very pretty. I mean, look at the intramuscular fat on this. Now, we're going to do a reverse sear on this, which means we're going to cook it in our smoker, 250 degree temperature. We're going to get it up to about 118. We're going to pull it off, let it rest, half hour, so it stops cooking. Then we're going to sear off both sides, and then we're done. The beautiful thing about tri-tip is it's actually a fast cook for us people that are used to long, slow cooks. Now, there are two videos that are going to be made out of this tri-tip. One is that first one. And then there's another video that we're going to do on a sandwich idea that I had when I was out at Leroy and Lewis. One of the things that they did to me, that sounds perverse, they made me think more about what I cook because they have a very creative menu. And you take cuts at some of these things. They have Frito pie that people love. I don't like raw onions, so I didn't like it. But I thought how good a sandwich would be made out of this if we took a page out of the sort of Chicago beef sandwich or a Philly cheesesteak. So this one we're going to cook the tri-tip. We're going to take that one to completion, and then we'll do another video on what I'm going to do with some of the leftovers. One other point. People always fixate on this. There are two different grain patterns on tri-tip. Kind of looks like a tornado. On this end, the grains go this direction. About right here, they switch. They're kind of going like this all the way up, and then they go like this on the hammerhead side. So what I'll do when I take it off is I'll probably cut it right here, and we'll slice against the grain, and then against the grain this way when we're done. So typically with a tri-tip, the Angus had this fat cap removed. This fat cap is actually very, very thin. If it were thicker for what I'm doing here with the reverse sear, I would probably score it. That's almost like a, Jets and Sharks argument. I don't know where you stand on it. I'm not going to score this. It's not thick enough. I did have a really interesting, I don't know whether it was a blood pocket or what it was up there, but I didn't like it. So I took it off. It was right here. Now it looks scalped. I'm going to use our Dalmatian. I'm going to do exactly what we've done elsewhere. We're going to get it into the seasoning, rub it around. Because it's not going to be on there very long, you're not going to get a lot of absorption. If I were going to do this for people other than Malcolm who I wanted to impress, I would probably do the seasoning the night before. Let that dry brine kind of hit in there, get some of the salt to get pulled back into the tissues of the meat, and then I hit it with a little bit more pepper at the end. But for what we're doing now, this is going to be fine. And again, kudos to all you restaurant folks and experts and pros who have taught us home cooks to use bus bins. I had a dear friend who worked in the service industry, and she laughed her ass off when I showed up at her house with food one day in a bus bin. But when you're done seasoning, this is what your tri-tip will look like. We're going to go put it into our cooker, fat side up. I'm going to put a wireless meat probe in it and take it to about 118, and then we'll check it out. Here I am with the tri-tip in hand, and I said I was ready, but I'm not because I'm an asshole. I keep forgetting that it's hot in here. I also did the same mistake I've done before. Grill's recovering temperature. I had it open for quite some time, moving some trays around. That's a lot of cold meat in there, dropping the cabinet temperature down. Don't overmeasure, guys. I did it for like my first 2 years cooking. I still do it 4 years later. These things will come back to temperature. It'll be just fine. This is not fast cooking. I'm going to put this guy up here on this top rack. Got a ThermalWorks remote temperature monitor in there. We're going to put a braising fluid pan underneath it so it'll drip into it. Probably about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, depending on when this recovers. We'll come out here, and that'll be at about 118, and we'll continue the tri-tip cook. Out in the meat palace, the tri-tip is coming off now. It's interesting for those of you who use a gravity feed smoker. I was just lamenting, while I love my smoker, right now my temperatures aren't exactly where I want them, but we're getting a lot of great smoke. So I probably shouldn't be mad, but I get really fixated on weird shit. The tri-tip is about 119 now. I'm going to pull it off. I'm going to put it on this rack and let it sit and stop cooking. Once that cooking is stopped after about 35 minutes, 40 minutes, we're then going to sear both sides. That'll end us at a finished cooking temperature somewhere around 128, 130, which is where I want. And then we'll be ready to slice it up and take a look. But let's get it out of here. Hello, smoke. Huh. That does not feel. I want my Thermapen. All right, we're gonna take this tri-tip out. I got worried. I didn't think it was done, but I forgot we're dealing with a Wagyu tri-tip. She jiggles. So we're gonna let this thing set. We're at 120 here. 140. I expect it to be more done down here. 138, 140. 126 at this end. I'm gonna go let this stop cooking. We're gonna leave it out here on the grill, let it stop, and then we're gonna come out here and sear it off, and then we'll be done. Meat Palace, I've got our tri-tip sitting here. I mentioned earlier, this is a Wagyu tri-tip. I've never cooked a Wagyu tri-tip before. There's a lot more intramuscular fat there. It is definitely jiggly still, but we check the temp. On this end of the tri-tip, you usually get a little bit more well done unless you do a lot of moving it around during the cook, which I did not do. So I think we temped out around 138, 140 down this end before we held it out. But we got to our 118, 120 in the middle, let it stop cooking. It peaked at about 125. It's now calmed down, and we're going to torch both sides of this. This is the fat cap side. I'm going to start there. I'm going to start there eventually. Turn this guy over. Look at the fat on the top of there. Holy cow. Alright, we got our torch going. We're on the non-fat cap side. Got the flame down a little bit lower than I had it on the first time. This is an homage to Guga Foods. Sous vide everything, which is also an awesome channel. If you guys have not seen that, you find that hard to believe. But all we're trying to do is get that fat on the outside towards the surface. You get a nice sear. Our internal temperatures were where we wanted them to be. My tendency here is to under-sear, which is probably just a total rookie move. But I don't like burnt crust, clearly. So I'm getting a nice char on this outside. They tell you to sear when you're in a flat top for a minute or two. I think with a torch, you don't get that long. Go back over the back side. Huh? The back. Not on the back side. You can see with this Wagyu, there's so much fat in there to get seared off. I clearly need to invest in a better Searzall. The Sear Pro has done well for me, but it isn't the super cool name brand one, and it is clearly struggling. I think we got a good sear there, though. Our searing experts will probably say I overdid that, but I think it actually looks very good. Got that fat bubbling. We're going to bring this inside, let it rest for a few seconds more, and then we are going to start slicing. All right, we're back inside with our tri-tip now. We've smoked it to about 120. Let it stop smoking, let it stop cooking, let it stop carrying over. Then we just seared it off with our torch. If you recall, we talked about the way the grains run, and they run this way down and kind of turn towards the top of the tri-tip. So I'm going to make one diagonal cut across here. Looking like a pretty damn good medium rare there. This side will slice this direction. This side will slice this direction against the grain. See what we got here. Bite-sized pieces. Wow. That is exceptional. Crust is great. Wagyu is great. That broke down beautifully. A really nice medium rare. Malcolm, you want to try? No? All right. So what we're going to do for the rest of this is we're going to slice up and make sandwiches out of it. But for right now, this is how our tri-tip wraps up. You take it the temperature you want. If I take this down on this end, you'll see more done towards that narrow end, right? So you get closer to a medium on that end. I don't know a way around that other than maybe moving it around constantly in the cook. Doesn't bother me. Some people like it a little bit more medium. So at the end of the day, doesn't bother me. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, do all those things you're supposed to do, but it's really not necessary. I have a good time. Big thanks to all the guys I met out in Austin, Steven and the whole crew, as well as Evan, Cole, Joey, Brad. This tri-tip will be refeatured in a sandwich video that'll be coming soon, and we'll come up with a name for that sandwich at that point. But at this point, we're out with Old School Eats. We'll see you on the next video. All right, so I'm sitting here editing these videos, and to be honest, the tri-tip video just isn't that interesting. It's delicious, and I definitely recommend you guys to make the tri-tip. But trying to squeeze a whole nother video out of the sandwich video didn't make sense. So I'm going to go ahead and throw in the tri-tip sandwich, which was sort of a take on a Chicago beef sandwich or a Philly cheesesteak. But instead of using the same meat that they use, I'm going to use chilled and sliced tri-tip, which I'll explain in the video later, with a Chipotle horseradish sauce. And we went and found some really interesting cheeses at our local Publix. We've got a sriracha cheddar and a Chipotle smoked Gouda. And we blended those cheeses together. Now, I also took some poblano peppers. We sauteed those with some shallots and some garlic, and put those all together on a hoagie and made a sandwich with an au jus, which was basically the braising fluid that I used for the barbacoa in a previous video. Miners, au jus beef prep and beef base, some salt, pepper, garlic, some smoked paprika. I think that's all that's in there. It's sort of a basic au jus. And I took the tri-tip that had then been chilled, was medium rare, dropped it in the au jus that was very, very warm, put it back on the sandwich, assembled the sandwich, and then used the au jus as a dip. So take a look, let me know what you think. For our tri-tip sandwich that we haven't named yet, we wanted to come up with a sauce. And so we wanted to go with a crema. We both Malcolm and I like Chipotle peppers. And so we thought about kind of taking a take on the horseradish sauce you have with prime rib. So we're gonna have some horseradish, raw horseradish, some Worcestershire sauce, and sour cream, which is at the heart of that sauce. Add some chipotles in adobo. I'm going to take the goo out of this. There's probably a scientific word for that. I'm not going to bother chopping up the pepper, etc. A little salt, pepper, garlic. And I'm just going to do it to taste. I would give you the measurements, except for I don't do that on this channel. So we're going to just kind of go by feel. I love sour cream, just so we're clear about that. And we're doing this in advance because Sam, the cooking guy, who I enjoy a great deal, says for sauces, it's better if you can let these guys go in advance. So actually, I have some measurements for you. That's 8 ounces roughly. 8 ounces. Half of 16 is 8. Of Breakstone's sour cream. I'm going to go with a significant amount of horseradish. Call it a very heavy teaspoon. But I may go back to that. You can get some of these Chipotle goodnesses over here. I'm not going to cross-contaminate. Don't follow me because it's a mess over here. I will cut that out in post. If you haven't used these Chipotles in adobo, Well, this is actually very, very thick in here. I'm going to struggle with that. But you know what? Maybe the chunkiness isn't bad. So if you haven't used these before, they can be chunky, they can be saucy. I'm going to, and Malcolm actually used the right word for it, macerate this with a spoon. So we're going to try and squish this all together. I want to get it a little bit more gooey, which is the scientific term, before I mix it in with my sour cream and horseradish. I don't care if it's a little chunky, but I don't plan on putting this through a blender. So I don't want someone getting a big ass chunk of chipotle pepper. That would probably be an unpleasant bite. This is really fighting back pretty hard. Not sure that I'm gonna like this, but we'll see. I'm sure those sounds are annoying as hell. Maybe I'll put some music effects in here. It's a very smoky flavor. That is going to end up being a heaping teaspoon. That may be a significant amount. We'll find out.
Let's add more.
Yep. We'll go with a little bit of Worcestershire. And a little bit of salt and pepper. With a little garlic in there. Now, in true Sam the Cooking Guy fashion, now we mix. Now, we did not try this beforehand. This is completely fabricated in our heads. So it could taste absolutely like shit. In which case, you may or may not ever see it on the channel. I'm not currently disappointed with what it looks like. Tastes good, needs more of everything. Sour cream is too strong, definitely needs more horseradish. That's another teaspoon of horseradish. Try and get some more of the sauce down here. But this is a packed ass can of Chipotle. Get you out of here. There we go. I think it was those two ingredients that I'm missing. We're already going to have a little bit of heat in here because we're going to do poblano peppers on the sandwich. And I may not strain this, but go through with a fork. Pull some of that. Let's see what it's like. Getting there. Oh. A little bit more chipotle, I think. And I don't think I'm mad about the horseradish either. I think I like the horseradish in there. This is the first time I've ever bought one of these things that there's like no sauce. It's amazing. There we go. I'm going to put a little bit more horseradish. I want a little bit more bite. So that's 3 teaspoons horseradish. I think this may get us where we want to be. So there's still some chunks in there, but I don't know that I even hate that. Yeah, I think I like that. So sauces are a fun way to, experience and experiment with food. Sam the Cooking Guy's channel does a great job with it. I love using sour cream as a sauce. You have all sorts of different cremas you can do. I know I've seen a lot of people using avocado mixed in with sour cream and other things. This I'm going to let sit in the fridge until we're ready to make our sandwiches, and we'll taste it again and see if we need to make some adjustments. But for right now, I think it's good. If I had to do it again, I would probably blend the peppers because I think we'd get more of the actual chipotle bite in there. But I'm too damn lazy to do it this time. All right, the moment of truth has come. We have our tri-tip that we chilled, what I'll call the hammerhead side of, the long side of. I went in and sliced that very thin and then sliced up into pieces. Malcolm and I were talking about Philly cheesesteak places that chop versus the long pieces. We went with sort of bite-sized pieces following the Sam the Cooking Guy mode. Here's our au jus. I took some of the meat, dropped it in there. You can see that we're at medium rare here. The au jus is cooked it a bit. We've got our Chipotle sauce here. We got our hoagie roll. We did not make our own roll. We're not as cool as Josh and those guys. We're gonna put down some sauce on the bread. I actually don't care if there's chunks in this at all. We can see some of the Chipotle in there. And any extra, we'll just go ahead and put it on the top just in case. Can't have too much sauce on a sandwich. Now, I'm gonna try not to make a total mess out of this whole thing. I don't know about you guys and your sandwiches, but I like a little bit of meat in my sandwich. I have overfilled this sandwich. There we go. We got some grilled up scallions.
Those are scallions.
These are not scallions? What were they? No, not scallions. I'm sorry.
Shallots.
Shallots. And some poblano peppers. That was the blend that we talked about doing. I don't normally have peppers or onions on my sandwich. In fact, my wife's in the other room probably going, what the hell is he doing? We got smoked Gouda, Chipotle smoked Gouda. Now, unlike onions and peppers, I have been known to enjoy cheese from time to time. You may have been able to pick up by my rotund structure. And this was a sriracha. What was the base cheese? Was it also Gouda?
Cheddar.
Sriracha cheddar. Some sriracha cheddar on here as well. Now, take it up a notch. We're going to try and melt this cheese with this torch. I say try and melt this cheese with the torch. That's exactly what torches do. I am not mad at all with what's going on. Now, doing this on a paper plate may not have been the smartest move, but we've never really been accused of being that bright here at Old School Eats. I'm not mad about the smell that's coming out of here, Malcolm. All right. I think a little bit more of the sauce on the top. And we realized, once we did this, there's no way that this was all gonna be easy to cut on a paper plate. So we got the last cutting board we had, which happens to be pink. There is our, whatever the hell we're calling it, tri-tip cheese with our au jus as a dip. And I get my Chicago sandwiches wet. Okay, that's really good. I do think that we lose a little bit of the tri-tip in the other shit that's in here. But it is, generally speaking, a delicious sandwich. Delicious enough that I will take another bite. The jus is also quite flavorful. And I got a lot of the flavor from the tri-tip seasonings. The second bite got some of the poblanos in there. I think it's fantastic. A fun way to use the tri-tip. A little bit of a pain in the ass to put all this stuff together. But if you do it for your family, it'd be a lot of fun. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, notification bell, all the things that you're supposed to do, which I've done a really crap job of doing since I came back to doing these videos. We will be back with more cooking when I have the chance to. Big shout out to the guys at Leroy and Lewis for the tips they gave me when I was out there and for inspiring me to try and come up with something different. And we'll try a couple different variations on this. I think a birria consomme would be good with this because I think it would hold up well against a tri-tip. But thanks for tuning in the video. We'll see you next time.